All right, the innocent racism of Thanksgiving. All right, we're about to get that one. God Light, by the way, was a story. It's a true story about when I was a youngster on the God Light, the soap opera, and I wrote about that. And this is the innocent racism of Thanksgiving. So I'll do it. You know, so Clarence, you give me that 5-minute check, and you just point at me, be like. I got you. Love Clarence, boy. I can't wait to work with him going forward. You know, Clarence is also an editor. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to tell your BI like that. I'm just excited for all of this. You know, one big happy family here tonight. The innocent racism of Thanksgiving. I've never read this ever to anyone. First dibs for all of you, okay. She curled up next to me real close. With her pre-adolescent, post-toddler energy like most her age, she would only sit still for a matter of seconds anyway. A few times she looked up, gazed at me with the blue eyes a baby like her could only have, with a few extra glances of peculiar innocence. The bond we shared would only last less than a minute. This wonderment of being near another human totally different in size and appearance could not last. And any camaraderie between us, to say the least, should not exist, perhaps. Yet in hindsight, I will always feel our similarity with a few differences. It felt natural to put my arm around her, someone so kind, someone so loving, just like my 6-year-old sister who turned 7 without me over 3,000 miles away. This girl was different than my sister, and she was a join to me. And before I knew it, my arm was around her, and I lovingly brushed the strands of her sandy blonde hair, stringy from its follicles. With a perfect toothpaste grin, she asked me, "Do you want to play with me and my doll?" "Maybe the next time your dad brings me over," I lied, purely needing to tell the truth inside my soul. There was no crime in a future fellowship with this family, or was there? The questioning, inquisitive youngster was the baby of the Swinson family, spearheaded by my platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class George Swinson, the E7 in charge of the medical platoon inside of the brigade unit in which I served in Fort Lewis, Washington. While working at Troop Medical Clinic number 3, Sergeant First Class Swinson had made the announcement one morning as we ran sick call of opening his home for the upcoming holiday to the soldiers who couldn't make it home on leave. For the younger medics in his unit, far away from their families, this should work well that he was opening his home for Thanksgiving. Some other platoons in my brigade unit, like brigade staff, communication, aka commo, the cooks, and the motor pool were doing the same thing that SFC Swinson did for the medics. No sweat. Even Staff Sergeant Natalie Gilliard invited me to her house for Thanksgiving, which was in the same vicinity of the Swinson home, within walking distance. Staff Sergeant Gillard, a medical NCO from another unit, was an over 35, still sexy femme fatale in her own right, and a cloned image of Mary Wilson from the world-famous singing trio, the Supremes, with her flawless smile and her unblemished dark cocoa skin. "You damn right," I told her that I would stop by her house also for the holiday, taking her number so I could give her a call. I figured I would get her to drop me back on the post to the barracks after I was done at Sergeant First Class Swinson's, if there was time. The ride off post was uneventful. Sergeant Swinson had transported a few of us to his home located off the base in his minivan. The other 2 medics, Private E2, better known as PV2, Billy Grenada, and Alec Baldwin look-alike from a small town in Ohio, and my squad leader, specialist, back then known as Spec 4 at the rank E4, Adrian Hallmeyer, a weighty blonde chick with a tomboyish haircut from Tampa, Florida, lived in the barracks like I did. She talked with Sergeant Swinson the duration of the 20-mile ride, with the 20-minute ride with no radio play, and Grenada slept until we reached the Swinson residence. Once we arrived, and after the introductions of Mrs. Swinson, the other children of the house, and little adorable Amy, I found a comfortable love seat to sit in. This is where Amy was drawn to me like a moth to a flame. Within the hour, dinner was served, and it was beautiful.
and it was the beautiful traditional Thanksgiving dinner, yet with a few subtractions for me. I loved the turkey with gravy dressing and the cranberry sauce. There was ham and green beans. However, I missed the macaroni and cheese, yams, collard greens, and chitlins with hot sauce from the various tables I experienced back home. Yes, I repeat, chitlins. There were cakes, pies, ice cream, and the arrival of 2 more guys from our platoon who lived off post. So far, the holiday meal was cool. Assorted beverages, including water and sparkling cider. So time moved on during Thanksgiving 1987 at the Swenson home, filled with subtle chuckles of its usual inhabitants, a few displaced Army medics, and the settled aroma of the feast. Once everyone was done eating, Sergeant First Class Swenson and Mrs. Swenson took care of the dining room and the kitchen areas, while their daughters, Beth, the eldest closest to my age, and Lisa, the younger teen, led the members of their dad's platoon back into the den to recuperate from the gastric packing of the meal. After returning to my original spot in the living room, Amy rejoined me with another one of her dolls, and she did her best to fit in with the giant strangers around her. Next to where I was sitting, there was a small television that doubled as the family's video game station. As time slowly continued, it was someone's idea to set the video game station to a computerized event of Wheel of Fortune. While Sergeant and Mrs. Swenson continued cleaning, the rest of us played the game, and each time the wheel was spent, the graphic Vanna White would clap simultaneously with the spin of the wheel. When the wheel stopped, she stopped. At the beginning of the game, we all chimed in to answer each of the questions, solving the puzzles. There were the Swenson girls, Spec 4 Hallmeyer, PV2 Grenada, then there was the addition of another squad leader, Spec 4 Jeb Arnold, hailing from Covington, Kentucky, who stared at you pseudo-cordially with sky blues from behind his John Lennon-like spectacles. Also, the platoon hunk, so he thought, Private First Class Steve McCormick from Casper, Wyoming, did his aggressive usual with his opinionated presence, devouring the energy. He regurgitated wrong answers, but his big voice and his reddening face and blotches made his answers right with each chew of Skoal tobacco. Last but not least, there was little old me, fresh from the uptown hood of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and uptown Harlem, New York. The household was amazed at all of my right answers and solved puzzles at first, and my little girlfriend Amy was disgruntled at my young adult's shift of attention to the giant people. I truly didn't mean to hurt her feelings after our premier connection. I believe we did share something in common, and she believed the same in her own way. We both connected in a world of our own. Amy must have felt overlooked often on a daily basis as the youngest individual in a quiet, nuclear-like household, currently loud with new huge people to meet, and me, 3 time zones away from the rats, roaches, and rhythm of 8 million crammed dream chasers. I was being overlooked due to stereotypical, underestimated intelligence. I quickly began spiraling into a mosquito in a glass of milk mental type scenario. Amy was whisked away by her sister Lisa after becoming possessed with a tantrum, and by this time I was purely drowning in the mental milk, while my comrades answered all the questions, solved all the puzzles at an elevated volume which drowned me out, not allowing me to get a word in. Starting to feel like a ghost, I thought of the pearly white smile of Sergeant Gillard, equivalent to the sunshine after a storm, and I jumped to my feet to give the signal I needed to go. At that point, Sergeant First Class Swenson and Mrs. Swenson had finished putting their great meal away, and my platoon sergeant returned a raised eyebrow at the mention of Sergeant Gillard and my need to suddenly call her and spend some of my Thanksgiving holiday at her house with her family. Private Haynie, are you sure you want to head over to Sergeant Gillard's? I mean, one, she's about a 5-minute drive from here, and that's not too nearby. You'll be walking for a while. I don't think you want to walk around here by yourself. It's about sundown. Sergeant Swenson, I replied. I'm from New York. It's cool. Suit yourself. The next 10 minutes, I was bopping down winding roads with no sidewalks, much different from the city. After a while, I made myself feel right at home. Felt like I was way out on Long Island or up in Westchester in Orange County, dealing with the brisk chill of autumn, following the hues of a starlit night covered mountainous sunset. The street intersections seemed a mile apart with less frequent crossings. To take my mind off the increasing darkness, I decided that I didn't have a choice but to sing and rap my favorite tunes of the day aloud to pass the time of the walk. Sergeant Swenson was not kidding. I must have been in my second verse of belting out cameos Candy, complete with dance moves, still alone or so I thought. I didn't acknowledge the humming motor of the Washington State Trooper vehicle riding alongside me. The window was already down when I heard the policeman state, "Where you getting to, boy?" I'm gonna leave it right here.
All right.
Cliffhanger, right?
That will inspire everyone to want to get the book when it comes out to finish on.
Any questions really quickly about what you just heard, or about the shorts?
When that book coming?
Spring of 2025. I'll keep you all posted. I should have bought something for that way you can sign a mailing list for me, but you make sure you sign a mailing list for Jennifer Wilson,
I was
please.
about to say that we have a list up there. We're going to pass it around. We'd like everyone to get your name and email address. That way we can keep you posted. His event and also all the other events that we have here at Sisters Uptown Bookstore.
Yes.
You also mentioned, getting back, you also mentioned James Baldwin. I just want everyone to know that Sisters Uptown Bookstore will be the official bookseller for the James Baldwin 100 celebration at City College on December 5th. It's an all-day event, so we will be there on December 5th.
So let's join Sisters Uptown Bookstore at this event. Sergeant Moore is here. At ease.
So again, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. And I want to thank you, Ronald, for sharing your story and your book with us, and your writing, and your time.
Thank you very much.
It's very